Okay, so I assume no questions as it is introductory lecture. So we will start today's class. So hope you're able to see my screen. Can anyone answer? Unmute yourself and answer.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, so today we will discuss about storage of bulk solids. I think yeah. Before I move on to this today's lecture, I forgot to keep this slide. Yeah. Yeah. All the green parts I will teach. All the green parts I will teach. So, as one student also asked, also we wanted to not to interfere each one's topic. I'm starting a topic with storage, handling, and transportation of solids, because this one has no direct connection with all these topics. This topic doesn't have much connection with the previous topics, although interrelated, but you don't need any basic knowledge of these topics to understand this. So that's why I'm planning to start from this. So today we will talk about storage of solids. Today and next class we will talk about storage of solids. So this is the overall course distribution. I'm going to start with storage, handling, and transport of solids. And in that we have two sections, subsections. One is storage of solids, and one is transport of solids. So today's lecture and next lecture will focus on storage of solids. Okay. So that is the plan. And whenever I teach a class, I will show this course distribution slide and I will tell you where we are so that you will have an idea. Right. Yeah, today we'll talk about storage of bulk solids. Bulk solids are used in so many industries. I just only kept a few images here with a broad industry names. Agricultural industry, grains, and so grains and different plant products. And we have mineral processing like iron industry, coal, processing of coal, processing of fertilizers, and uh, and processing of pharmaceutical products. So many mineral processing industries. So pharmaceutical comes in different sector. Then we have fertilizer industries. There also we use solids, particulate matter, particles. Then we also use construction materials. Construction materials like sand, cement, gravels, and those things. Even in food processing, also we use solid storage and solid handling, and pharmaceuticals also we use. There are some other industries like rubber, plastic industry where we use particles, pulp and paper industry also where we use solids or particles. Power generation, which also requires coal and slag. We also deal with slag and coal and different chemical processing industries. Like last time I showed phosphoric acid production, where we take the phosphate rock particles. So every industry, almost of all industries, at the beginning or at the end, they have to deal with the solids. When you have to deal with the solids, you have to have definitely will have two important aspects. As soon as you say I deal with solid, definitely two important aspects will be you need to store them and you need to transport them. As soon as the industry is handles or tackles solids, bulk solids or particles, then definitely that industry has to deal with the storage and the transport of the bulk solids, right? So we will go storage part today, and later we'll go to the transport part. Now, particle solids, the bulk solids, usually in the range of microns to centimeter scale, and as just to show how diverse it is, I have listed some of the particle types here. Just to show how diverse it is, I just listed different types of particles: abrasive particles, tough particles, rubbery nature, elastic nature particles, soft nature of the particles, dusty type, cohesive. Sorry, there is some typo here. Cohesive particles and free flowing particles. I'm sure we have seen all these types. We have come across all these types of materials either while we playing in the ground or while we taking the food or while we trying to purchase something or whatever in our the lifetime or in the life spectrum, we have seen these types of the particles, right? So without going more in the general aspects, I'm just trying to move into the actual topic, that is storage types. How do you store these solids? We have varieties of solids, and how do you store them? How do we store them? When we store them, what are all the important aspects we will come across while storing? What are all the problems we face while storing? That all we discuss. The storage of the solids primarily of the two types. One is open storage, other one is cold storage. Open storage, cold storage. Open storage means just storing on the open environment. Open storage is nothing but storing the solids in an open environment. That is the name, very, very simple name, and the definition also very simple. Closed storage. Closed storage means we are trying to store the solids. We are trying to store the solids in a closed container, enclosed container, enclosed container. There are three types. Three types depends upon the specifications and the shape of that container. There are the three types. One is called bin, another type is called silo, another one is called hopper. Sorry, I again made a typo here. Hopper. Hopper. Another mistake, I have done the typo here. Hopper. So, so we'll go one by one. What is open storage? What is the cold storage? What are all the particle physics? How they affect this design of these things? We will see. So, in every one of us has seen people storing sand in the open environment, people storing the gravels or stones in the open environment, because nowadays every part of the world somehow some or other construction is going on. People love to do this construction destruction syndrome. They want to break the house and they want to construct the house. Always people want new things, shiny things, right? We all love it. So that's why the construction unending, construction destruction will be unending. That's why we are. I'm sure all of us would have seen storage of sand and gravels. Why do you store? Why do we store sand and gravel? Can anyone answer? Why do we do the gravel and gravels and sand in the open storage?
They are cheap, like no one will steal them.
Right? They're low cost. Now nowadays sand is, I don't know, not all the states, but some states people are stealing the sand because it is becoming expensive. Right? Any other? Thank you.
Also because they are made by weathering.
They are made by the natural weathering conditions. Is it? Am I heard rightly?
I said they are unaffected by weathering
Yes, that
conditions.
is correct. They are unaffected by the weather conditions. Whether it is a high sunny day, hot day, whether its oxygen is there or not, it is unaffected. That is the important principle. These solids, these particulate matters, they are unaffected by the weather conditions. That is why we store them in the open environment. If any material which is unaffected by the weather conditions, that can be stored. Of course, one problem can come that when rain comes, the leaching of sand or the sand can take away by the rainwater. That problem is there, but it will be slightly less. It will be slightly less than the cost to construct a container and to empty that the container. All these things are expensive. Money factor obviously is there because if you have to do something, you have to pay money, right? Obviously, industry means always revolving around every single penny. So money factor is there and weather conditions also there. Very good. Thank you. So now also when hundreds and thousands of tons of materials involved, and since the material is already unaffected by the weather conditions and large quantity of these materials has to be handled, and that's why they store in the open environment. But now I have given two other examples. One is sulfur storage, another one is coal storage. Right? Why do we store them in open environment? Can anyone say? Because sulfur, the outdoor storage of sulfur can lead to environmental problems, right? Because sulfur particles can mix with air, and that can cause environmental problems like dusting. And whenever the rain comes, small sulfur, some surface sulfur can dissolve, and that dissolved water can go through, and that can cause environmental problems. But still, you see that sulfur and coal and some other materials store in the open environment. Can anyone give a reason for this?
So they are used in quantity, so that may lead to the effective storage, cost effective.
Yeah, one answer is that they produce huge quantities, like sulfur from petroleum industry. You can see here, this is the sulfur pyramid they call, just for the namesake. This is in Canada, and the quantity is so huge. So that's why one argument one can say, but people's health is more important than one's own money considerations. Any other reason?
Sulfur that is on the outer layer reacts with oxygen, forming a coating, which does not allow the whatever is inside to leave that, that pile.
Can you repeat? First statement is correct. Second statement I could not understand. Let's say sulfur reacts with oxygen. Yeah.
Sulfur reacts with oxygen and forms a coating outside the pile. Which does not allow the inside of the other sulfur to leave.
What kind of coating? You mean what kind of coating? Let's say sulfur reacts with oxygen, it forms SO2, no?
Yes, sir. And then it does not allow the other part of sulfur to leave the pile. That could be.
First, I think I totally agree with sulfur reacts with oxygen, SO2 will form, but coating formation will not happen. Because as soon as there's the reaction, that gas will disappear, no?
Okay, sir. Got it.
Actually the point is lying there. I think you're on the stand, but slightly gone wrong track. If you store sulfur in closed system, right? Whatever sulfur vapors which will form, because at every point of time any solid liquid can emit the gases, right? The element sulfur which comes out, and sulfur react with oxygen. It is exothermic reaction. It's an exothermic reaction, and also sulfur is prone to the catching fire. Sulfur and coal is prone to the catching fire. If you put these two items in a closed storage, whatever sulfur that react with oxygen that emits heat, with over a period of time, the heat buildups in the container, the heat build up in the container, and that can lead to the fire accidents. That can lead to the fire accidents. I repeat my statements. The sulfur, if you store sulfur in a closed container, let's say this is the closed container, and if you store sulfur, whatever the free space is there, it will have sulfur gas, and this is oxygen, and this oxygen react with sulfur, and is exothermic reaction, and there will be heat buildup. For a period of time, that heat buildup increases, and at some point it will catch a fire if you leave it as it is. Same thing happens in the coal also. Coal could be a black bomb if improperly stored. This is the statement made by so many environmentalists. Coal could be a black bomb if stored improperly. What happens? Coal reacts with oxygen and forms CO2. It's fine, but coal also reacts with oxygen, forms carbon monoxide. Coal reacts with oxygen, can form carbon monoxide, and coal can react with oxygen and carbon dioxide. Whatever coal on the surface can have more oxygen, can have the availability of more oxygen, and more likely that will form CO2. Most likely that will form CO2. But whatever because this is a porous material, there will be voids. There will be voids in the coal pile, and there will be air, right? There will be air in the voids. There will be air in the voids, and that air will be limited. That will be limited or lower than the stoichiometrically required oxygen. So there is a high chance of forming the CO inside the heap. There is a high chance of forming the CO inside the heap. And we all know that CO is highly reactive, and it can leave a lot of, it can also emit a lot of heat. Of course, CO2 formation, whole oxidation also combustion reaction, and that also emits heat. So heat emitted by the CO2 conversion, heat emitted by the CO2 can, over a period of time, can catch the fire. That's why, if you happen to see, if your home is nearby a shipyard, a city, if you're living in a city where the shipyard, where the coal being stored, every day they have to water it. They have to sprinkle the water to release this gas. To replace this gas with water, they will have to continuously sprinkle. If they don't sprinkle for certain days and it is a very sunny weather, then it can catch fire. Even in the open storage. If you do have to closed storage, and there is a high chance of getting the fire. You're able to understand, students? Why is this stored in open atmosphere?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So hope you got a great answer. Thank you. So that is why the big problem, especially Kharagpur and Bombay, wherever the shipyard, wherever they store coal, and this problem is there because they have to store these materials in the open environment. The dust pollution, the particulate matter pollution is very significant role in those areas wherever there is mining of coal is taking place, because they don't have any option. They can't store in clothes, they can't cover it, they can't do anything. So that's why cities. I'm from cities. Major cities wherever the shipyard and where the store coal, they will have to face this problem of particulate matter pollution because of this open storage. So people are still exploring. They're trying to find out certain polymer coatings which they will lay down on the coal, and that can only allow the oxygen permeation only one way. So it won't allow oxygen permeation. So if somebody is very inquisitive or interested, they can work on making coating. They can make a coating. They can work on a polymer or any formulations coating, which they can apply on this, which can apply on these open storage materials, which won't leave any accidents, which won't lead to accidents, and which will not cause environmental pollution. If somebody is very curious and interesting, please they can work it out. They can think it, because this is $1 million problem, because it's an open problem for many years and they don't have any unique solution. Of course, people are doing. Here, I have made a point here. If coal needs to be stored in a closed container, I just wrote important here. You can store, but however, you need to make a lot of precautionary works. You can store coal in the closed container, provided you have to take certain important precautions. What are those precautions? So this is the closed container, and here we have stored the coal. Nowadays, we are fortunate that we have the gas analyzers, electrochemical sensors, and many sensors have come. The gas monitoring. You can detect very, very small quantity, even the ppm level. You can detect even the ppm level of the gas concentration. So you have to place gas analyzers at different locations. You have to place gas analyzers at different locations. That gas analyzer will analyze CO concentration and CO2 concentration. Also, temperature analysis. As we know that these are exothermic reactions. If there is any buildup of temperature, they have to immediately do certain precautionary actions. What are those actions? They have to purge nitrogen. Gas. From the bottom, they have to introduce the nitrogen gas. That nitrogen gas will penetrate. Through this pile, and whatever carbon monoxide, whatever CO2 is there, that will be carried away by the nitrogen. We have to purge the whole closed container with nitrogen gas, right? That purged nitrogen gas will actually pushes out the carbon monoxide and CO2. We all know that nitrogen gas is a perfectly net gas, and it is lighter than those, so it can easily push other two components. And proper ventilation system. You need to have a vacuum system and ventilation system to take out whatever formed carbon monoxide, carbon, CO2 continuously. If you have a good ventilation system, that can also minimize this problem of catching fire accidents in the cold. Closed storage of these reactive materials like sulfur and oxidizing material like sulfur and the coal. Do you guys have any questions at this point? Does anyone have any questions at this point?
Yes, sir, can you please explain why nitrogen gas is good? I don't understand that.
Yeah, nitrogen gas is inert gas. It doesn't react. It doesn't oxidize so easily. That is the reason they will use the nitrogen gas. Also, nitrogen gas is ability to replace the higher molecular weight gases. Nitrogen gas is ability to replace the higher molecular weight gases. Suppose if you have a CO2 in that void fraction, let's say there's a CO2 in this void fraction, and CO2 is there here, and when the nitrogen gas is purged, the nitrogen gas will be replaced by this because of its low molecular weight. Did I answer your question? The student who asked the question.
Yes, sir.
Want me to explain once again, or do you understood it? The student who asked the question, did I make my answer is understood?
Yes,
Or
sir. Yes, sir.
okay, thank you.
Yes, I understand. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other students have any other questions
Sir,
at this point of time?
say in
Someone
the
else is
closed
asking.
container,
Mhm.
we don't have any like sunlight type of thing which will make the heat. So, like, will it catch fire in the closed container also?
Yeah, what it actually is, heat from the atmosphere will not be big problem. See, this is carbon, right? Carbon reacts with oxygen and forms CO2. And is there anything will come along with this CO2? This
Carbon
is combustion
monoxide.
reaction, right? Along with CO2, anything else will come? Heat, right? Heat will produce. As this is exothermic reaction, heat will be produced. In a closed container, whatever heat is generated, that will not go away. That will be absorbed. That will be absorbed by the whatever coal particles are inside. So that way, heat accumulation will take place with time. Heat accumulation will take place with time. Let's say you have stored coal and you have unloaded it. You have taken out for a long time. What will happen? The heat buildup will take place. And that heat buildup at some point of time is such that the whole coal get converted to fire. The whole can lead to the fire accident. Did you understood the student who asked the question? Why is that fire accident can happen in a closed container?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Yeah, that's why we need to purge this CO2 which is formed with time to time using the nitrogen. Or we have to have a good ventilation system to take out those gases. Even simple vacuum will not work out because usually they store 10,000 kilos of coal in one container. And that's why the vacuum will not be sufficient to pull out the gases at the bottom of the closed container. That's why we need to purge with nitrogen. Any other student have any other question? Good that we are all understanding, paying attention. I'm happy. If anyone have any student any questions, please ask me. This is very important problem. Yes.
Sir, here we are sprinkling the water in the coal when stored in open.
Yes.
Won't it affect its efficiency of combustion?
Yeah. So they dry it. Actually, before they use it for the combustion, they'll dry it in a rotary dryers.
Okay.
So why aren't they stored in oxygen-free environments like containers which do not have oxygen?
Sorry. Can you repeat?
So why aren't they stored in oxygen-free environments?
So actually,
Like
if you want to make oxygen filament, it is possible to do in small container. But here they store almost 10,000 kilos, like 10-meter diameter, 50-meter length. Evacuating whole air from such thing will be very tough. If it is pharmaceutical industry, they only deal with 3-meter cube, 4-meter cube. So we can make it perfect oxygen-free environment. Of course, latest technologies have come even to do that one, but it's very expensive.
okay, sir.
Did I answer your question? The student who asked.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is only practical considerations. But if it is oxygen-free, if it's small quantity, yes, obviously you're right that we can make oxygen-free environment and we can simply store it. We don't have too much worry about it. But since we have to deal with so many tons, it is a little bit practical considerations to maintain oxygen-free environment. So these are all very practical problems, often less explored because people think that, yeah, it is going on for many years. Why we have to worry about it? That is why the environmental pollution comes from these particulate matters are very, very increasing. Nowadays, if you see PM2.5, you might have seen in any boards where they display the environmental pollution or air quality monitoring. The PM25 2.5 comes from this side of solids only, mining and storage, open storage of these solids only comes. And cities, some of the cities where they have this storage thing, definitely they have a significant issue of the PM2.5, the pollution. PM2.5 means particulate matter having 2.5 micron size. PM2.5 means particulate matter or particles having 2.5 microns in the air. That is called PM2.5. Right. So, if no questions, we will move on to the next one. So, this is so far we talked about the open storage. Open storage, nothing, right? We store the material in the open environment. Whenever you need, you will use procliner. You will use the procliner to fill the trains or the conveyors where the solids are being transported. Now, now we come to the cold storage. Sorry, I'll just make some water. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there are three types of vessels or containers used for the cold storage. This is very simple to understand the name cold storage. We are storing the solids in an enclosed container. Right? So one type is called bins. Bins, I have given a description below. Bins, silos, hoopers, all are similar, but there's a very, very small difference. So one is bins. The bins have a large diameter and small height. A large diameter and small height. And usually made of steel. And what type of materials are stored in bins? Food grains. Food grains. Food grains. Often, mainly the food grains are stored in bins. Food grains like wheat, rice, corn, and pulses. These are all stored in the bins. And because these materials are very specific to the humidity and temperature conditions. We are very well known. We very well known that most of these food materials tend to decompose or allow growth of fungus if it is subjected to the open environment, moisturized environment. That's why specified humidity has to be there. In rainy season, we all know. Suppose if you happen to involve in kitchen, boys or girls, whoever, if you let's say you have a chana dal or moong dal, and in the summer if you leave it outside, it won't get spoiled very fast. It will take, let's say, a week to get spoiled. If you leave it in the open environment in a rainy season for 2 days, you will see that fungus grows and it tend to decompose very fast. Because these are very much prone to the humidity and whatever microbes in the environment can sticky and stays on the grain for a long time, and that can lead to the decomposition of the food grains. That's why the food grains are very specific to it has to be maintained specific humidity and temperature. So this closed, the bins, since there's very, very small height and large diameter, it can be enclosed and you can maintain the dehumidifiers and cold, cold storage refrigeration conditions to maintain the required temperature. Okay, and often they are also vented, and it is mainly for the dry materials, completely dry materials. So the bins are very simplest. It doesn't need any very much emphasis, except that except that when you store certain amount of material, at what thickness the material has to have. Suppose you are storing, so this is a container, and let's say you are storing 10,000. What I mean to say, um, if you store, let's say one container, you store 100 kgs, and if you store another container, 10,000 kgs, 10,000 cases. So what basically matters is what will be the material, what will be the container material thickness. That is only matters, right? If you have to store large material, definitely you need to have a slightly thicker container. If you store low density material, then you can have a thinner material. That's the only difference. And this material thickness depends upon the stress, how much stress is being offered, how much stress the solids are offering on the surface, how much stress is being offered by the solids on the surface. We will come to that point a little later, okay? But let me first give me an overview of these cold storage materials or containers. Another one is called hoopers. Hoopers is basically a small containers with a slant outlet. The hoopers are basically a small container with the slant outlet or slant, a cone type of thing. Primarily for the discharge of solids. The cone is primarily was designed for the discharge of the solids. Like we can take out the solids easily. Whenever we have the cone, the flowing of solids is easier than without cone. That we all know it, and I will also show more details later. And another important thing is called silos. Another important thing is called silos. Silos is smaller diameter and tall. Smaller diameter and tall. At the end of today's lecture, you will understand why is that we need to maintain small diameter silos. Why is the silos need to have a smaller diameter and the length to be high? The L by D ratio should be very high. Why is that we need to maintain very high L by D ratio? You will understand at the end of this class. I have a special slide to explain this factor. Okay, so I will explain that part later. So more often the silos will have small diameter, length is higher. The silos can be made of concrete, and can be made of wood, and can be made of steel. Depends upon the what we are storing. Depends upon the what we are storing. Right. So suppose if you store coal, you don't need to have a wood steel, or we don't need, we can't we can make with a simple concrete. If something is very sensitive or it can affect uh, uh, the moisturizing properties of very much, then definitely we have to have a steel, because steel can stop the permeation of moisture or outside environment much more than the concrete materials. Of course, for the even in the silos, we need to maintain this specific humidity, not because, please listen, not because the material get degraded. The specific humidity we have to maintain to increase the flowability of this particle when you're taking out. To increase the flowability of the particles when you are taking out. During the discharge of these particles, suppose this is the silo, right, which has a tapered cone, and let's say you have opened this, and the particles will come out, right? When you open this, the particles will come out. Maybe I'll change the color. So you have stored a material through this silo, and this is the core. Let's say this is the opening, and you have opened the wall, right? And Whenever we need to take out, right? This we have stored material. Whenever we need to take out this material. How do we take out? We have to place a wall. When you open it, the material has to flow. If there is more and more humid accumulation, if more and more water vapor accumulation, the particles will get wet. When particles will get wet, what will happen? There is called, let's say there's a two particle. If there's moisture, there is called liquid bridge will form. There is something called liquid bridge. This liquid bridge makes them more cohesive. The interaction between the molecules, interaction between the particles will be increased. It tend to stick to each other. They will tend to stick to each other whenever there is a more and more humidity. So that won't, whenever these particles are sticking to each other, this particle will stick to this one, and this particle will stick to the next particle, and that way all the particles stick to each other, and they will not come out so easily. They will not come out so easily. That means the humidity of this material or the temperature conditions affects the flowability of these particles from the cellulose, right? You all understood the small point what I explained? Why is that we need to maintain specific humidity in this cellulose? It is not because the materials get degraded because of the humidity, rather it affects the flowability of the particles. Student, do you understood what I'm trying to explain? When there's more humidity, how there's a liquid bridge between the particles can increase the interaction between particles, and they will tend to stick to each other, and that will stop reduces the flowability of the particles. Do you understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, please.
So how do uh, means how to extract the particles from the bean?
How to extract?
It means while transporting.
Yes, I will explain. Later slides, I kept later slides on the extraction because that is the most important, right? Storing we all can do it, but important thing is how to take out so easily.
Yes. Okay.
We will discuss. Rest of next 1 hour is we'll talk about that one only.
Sir, what if the humidity is lower than the required?
There is no problem. If lower than the required, there is all obviously is good, right? If you have lower humidity, that's always good.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, the particles always lower humidity is preferable. It's always lower humidity is preferable. See, if most often, let's say if you open capsules, let's say if you have someone stored certain capsules in a box, right? And then they will place silica gels. Have anyone observed? Whenever they sell capsules or
Yes, sir.
any leather shoes, and all, when they store it, they'll keep the silica gels. Why? Because these materials can, they has ability to absorb moisture from the environment, and that's why if they get moisture, they get decomposed and lose its ability. Shoes, often shoes, if you soak it for a long time in a closed place, if they get degraded. So that's why they'll keep the silica gel, because the silica gel can absorb more moisture much faster than other material. Right. So that is where the way you store is matters. See, so there is 2 videos from this website. Janaki, who has worked very hard, did a lot of work in this silos design, because it's not that we store it. After storing, how to take it out? That is the most important part. If you're not able to take it out, no use, right? So the whole purpose of storing is whenever required, we need to take it out. So if we have to make, if you want to take the items outside, the solids outside, you have to have a cone at the bottom. Whenever there's a cone, depends upon the particles, the particles will flow out very easily, And here, if there is a depends on the cone angle, the flow of the particles are changing. Here, the first one in the first video, the cone angle is very high. That's why its flowing is very easier. Whereas second one, the cone angle is very low, and that's why you can see there is the flow is getting obstructed time to time. Stop, suddenly pausing, now stop, then suddenly falling. That way there is no uniform flow. Another sorry guys. Yeah, here there is another video. So this is the typical silo, right, where bulk solid materials are stored, and there is a hole, and at the bottom there is an opening. And I show later there is a specific wall we use. Now depends upon various factors. One problem can happen is bridging. Another problem can happen is called rat holing. So some of the materials are stuck at one corner, and only materials will form at the other corner. And this is called mass flow. They call mass flow. Mass flow means the particles coming at the uniform rate. The particles are coming out from the silo at the uniform rate. Yeah, here you can see the particles are coming out at the uniform rate. What? And I think I will not touch this. You can see at the after a few seconds, this is rat holding. My God. Yeah. Yeah, see here the particles are forming uniformly. The particles are coming out uniformly, continuously, and that is the most required conditions when we talk about the flowability of the particles and the discharge of the particles. You can see the particles are flowing out continuously at the uniform rate. The particles are coming out at the uniform rate. So that's why we kept this simple thing to highlight the way you store. It matters. If you don't store properly, you will not get out. You will not be able to take out the material at the uniform rate, or it can stuck. It will cause so many other problems. What is the most conducive is mass flow. So there is called this is called rotary valve. This is called rotary valve. Often this valve is used whenever you wanted to discharge the solids from a stored container. Rotary valve. So how this valve looks like, right? How this valve looks like. So this is the circular cross section. See, this is the discharge, right? This is the discharge. Based on this discharge outlet, they will make vertical cross sections. They will divide. Let's say this is the cylindrical disc, right? This is the cylindrical disc. This is the cylindrical disc. You can make into parts. No. I just sorry. Right. So this is the discharge, and this is the circular shape, and here, so this is the central rod or piston kind of thing, and the iron blades are welded. The iron plates are welded. The gap between these two will be equivalent to the gap of this one. The gap between these two will be gap of this one. So whenever this gap comes, what will happen? What will happen? Can anyone say? Whenever this comes, what will happen? The solids here will be filled, right? The solids are filled by this area. Am I right? When you rotate this, what will happen? Whatever filled solids will come here. In the after rotation, the filled solids will come here, and the empty one come there. Then again it gets filled. Now there will be discharge. There will be discharge area. When you rotate further, the particles will follow. This way, a calculated amount of solid can be continuously taken outside. But if you don't want depends on the speed, you get the rate at which, depend upon the speed at which this rotates, at the rate of the solids coming out also will vary. Do you guys understood how this rotary valve works? If not, I can explain once again.
Yes, sir.
And the student who asked the question that how do we discharge solids, did I answer your question?
So I was asking how to means take out from the bin.
So this way, no? So this is the bin. Oh, how to take out from the bin? I thought you asked about silos. Right. Yeah. So some bins. So this is bin, and this is very, very small height. This is the very small height. So whenever they want to empty it out, right? They will have since this is only dry solids, they will have a chutes. At different places, they will have the chutes. They will just open a small portion of this door, and they will collect the material easily. And since this is very low height, somebody can, if it is stuck, somebody can easily pull out that material. Do you understood?
Yes, I got it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so you told with the rotary valve we can measure how much amount we are taking out. So
Correct.
like it is measured in number of rotation. It will rotate something
Yes.
like that.
Yes,
So
exactly.
then how we can say like when it is rotating and the circle is divided into some parts, then how we know that it is filled with grain, then only that part will come down. Like,
How do we know? Because there will be rotor. See, there is a motor outside that will rotate, no?
sir, actually the grains are falling and filling the upper portion, then it is rotating and coming down. So
Yes,
like
yes.
how we'll know that the upper portion is filled and then only it is coming out. Then only
Oh,
like we'll be able to
yeah.
calculate.
Okay. Suppose this is the circle. Let's say this is filled, and when you operate the valve, we won't see whether it is filled or not. This continuously rotates, and if it is filled properly, the solids will come out. If it doesn't fill properly, less solids will come out. I don't know whether I answered properly. I hope I'll repeat. Your question, I guess your question maybe, first of all, let me understand the question. How do we know that is the area what we are keeping there is filled or not, right?
Yes, sir. Like if you don't know about the area, how much is filled, how we can measure what quantity is coming out per rotation? That was my question.
Okay. So at what rate the particles are coming, and how much time do we need to keep this to fill this area? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So from the particle mechanics, based on the various properties which we'll see later, we can estimate at what rate the solids can come out. We can estimate at what rate the solids can come out. Accordingly, we can design this rotary valve. Later, not today, by next week class, you will know based on the solids properties and the internal friction between solids and internal friction between solids and valve, various other properties. We have relationships to estimate at what flow rate the particles are coming out. That gives an idea that how much, because once you know the flow rate at which the particles coming out, we can easily estimate, right, how much time is required to keep this cone at that place.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Got it.
So let me answer, but let me repeat once again. Let's say based on the area of cross section, based on the discharge area, we assume that we know the flow rate at which the particle can come out. The flow rate at which the particles can come out. What is flow rate? The volume of solids can come out per unit time. Volume of solids can come out per unit time. Let's say we know this. Right now, I haven't explained you how to get that one. Let's say you know it. Suppose you know this, you know how much time is required to fill this cone, because we know the cone volume, and you know the volumetric flow rate. This is the flow rate. If I know the flow rate, this is the cone volume. Let's say VC, and VC by flow rate will tells us how much time I need to keep this. How much time I need to keep this rotary valve at that position. Based on that, I can adjust the speed. Do you understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So you will understand by next class how to get that rough approximate flow rate calculations. I will explain a little bit later because we need to cover some other topics before I explain that. So if you don't, the diameter, the most important thing when you discharge the solids, if you're not able to take out solids easily, then whole purpose of storage is lost. And whole purpose of storage doesn't help us. That's why the discharge of solids from this silos is also important. How we take out the material depends upon how we store or where do you store. So here, very, very critical, important factor is this cone, angle, and other properties, which we will discuss a little later. If you don't, let's say, if you don't have a proper design, what will happen? The particle gets stuck. As I showed in the previous video, the particles might get stuck. Then what we have to do? Often what you do, if anyone gone to the local mills to, I don't know how many of you, because you all, I think, were studying hard, staying home, so you might not visit this, but in my childhood, my mother used to send, take this rice and go to the local mill, get the rice flour, or take this wheat and press it and get the wheat flour. Nowadays, we have commercial attas and everything, but those days, we have to make ourselves, right? Not much available. So if you go to local mills, if you go to local crushing mills where they make wheat flour, rice flour, other thing from the grains, you will see that they will try to beat, where they will hit with hammer. They will with the hammer for the discharge of the fluids. Anyone experience this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if improper design of a hooper, then whenever there is no uniform mass flow, to take out the particles, they have to hit and they have to do so many other things. It's very small scales we are hit with hammer, but what happened to the industrial large scale, 10,000 or 50,000 kilos or 50 tons capacity silos, what will happen to those? That is why it's very, very important to look at the design aspects of these silos. So we'll take 5 minutes break. You all can take some water or use washroom, whatever, and we'll meet after 5 minutes. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we'll meet. I'll start after 5 minutes, and please don't go away. Just take some water or use washroom, whatever.